time, I didn't perceive what I view myself as a victim, but clearly I am one. Looking back, I see the effects that this had on me. In the years after what happened, I fell into alcohol and nihilistic partying. It lasted well into my 20s. A few years ago, I realized it was time to do something good with my life. I started focusing on work, but the black comedy, the gallows humor, and the love of shock value I developed in my 20s never really went away. I've reviewed the tapes that appeared a few days ago in the proper context, and I don't believe that they say what is being reported. Nonetheless, I do say some things on the tapes that I do not mean, and which do not reflect my views. My experiences as a victim led me to believe that I could say almost anything on this subject, no matter how outrageous. But I understand that my usual blend of sassy, gay British sarcasm, provocation, and gallows humor might have come across as flippancy. A lack of care for other victims, or even worse, as seems to have been the case in reports, advocacy. I'm horrified by that impression. I would like to restate my disgust at adults who sexually abuse minors. I'm horrified by pedophilia, and I have devoted large portions of my career to exposing child abusers. I've exposed 3 of them in my reporting, which is 3 more than most of my critics. I've repeatedly expressed disgust at pedophilia in my feature and opinion writing, and I was also the first journalist in the UK to ask, after Jimmy Savile's death, whether the real story of his rampant child abuse would ever be told. My professional record is very, very clear. But I do understand that the videos that you have seen, even though some of them were deceptively edited, paint a different picture, and I am partly to blame for that. I do not advocate for illegal behavior. I explicitly say in the tapes, in a section that was cut from the footage that you've seen, that I think the age of consent currently is about right. I do not believe that any change in the legal age of consent is justifiable or desirable. I don't believe that sex with 13-year-olds is okay. When I mentioned the number 13, I was talking about myself and the age that I lost my virginity. It can strike some Americans as unusual or strange, but my mother's native Germany, the age of consent is 14. We have a different approach to these things sometimes in Europe. I shouldn't have used the word boy. Gay men often use boy or girl to mean men of consenting age. But I understand how heterosexual people may not have realized that, and that was an error. I was, in fact, talking about my own relationship when I was 17 with a man who was 29. The age of consent in the UK is 16. I did say that there are relationships between older gay men and younger gay men that can help the younger gay man escape from a lack of support or understanding at home. That's perfectly true, and every gay man knows it. I'm certainly guilty of imprecise language, which I regret. And anyone who suggests, however, that I turn a blind eye to illegal activity or to the abuse of minors is unequivocally wrong. I'm implacably opposed to the normalization of pedophilia, and I will continue to report and speak accordingly. To repeat, I do not support child abuse. It's a disgusting crime of which I have personally been a victim. The remarks I made on podcasts and interviews more than a year ago were about my personal life experiences, but I didn't make that clear. I will not apologize for dealing with my life experiences in the way that I choose to, which is through humor and provocation. No one can tell me or anyone else who has lived through these experiences how they should best deal with those emotions. But I am sorry to other abuse victims who may have interpreted what I said as flippant or uncaring if my own personal way of dealing with what happened to me has hurt you. I will never stop making jokes about taboo subjects. Go into any drag bar or gay club and you will hear joke after joke after joke about clerical sexual abuse. I'm not afforded the same freedom to make those kinds of jokes because the media chooses to selectively define me as a political figure in some circumstances and a comedian in others, and also, of course, because I'm a conservative. But I said some things on those internet live streams that were simply wrong. My employer, Breitbart News, has stood by me while others caved. They've allowed me to carry conservative and libertarian ideas to communities that would otherwise never have had them. They have been a significant factor in my success, and I'm grateful for the freedom and for the friendships that I forged there. But I would be wrong to allow my poor choice of words to detract from my colleague's important job, which is why today I'm resigning from Breitbart effective immediately. This decision is mine alone. When your friends have done right by you, it's only right to do right by them. And for me, that means stepping aside so my colleagues at Breitbart can get back to the great work they do. My book, Dangerous, has received interest from other publishers after my previous publisher, Simon & Schuster, informed me they no longer wish to release it. The book will come out this year as planned, with perhaps an additional chapter. I'll be donating 10% of my royalties to child sex abuse charities. I haven't ever apologized before, and I don't anticipate ever doing it again. Name-calling doesn't bother me, and misreporting doesn't bother me. But to be a victim of child abuse and at the same time be accused of being an apologist for child abuse is absurd. I regret the things that I said. I don't think I've been as sorry about anything my whole life, and this isn't how I wanted my parents to find out about this either. But let's be clear about what's happening here. This is a cynical media witch hunt from people who do not care about children. They care about destroying me and my career, and by extension, my allies. They know that although I made some outrageous statements, I've never actually done anything wrong. They held this story back. They held the footage back, footage that's been out there in the wild for over a year, because they don't care about victims. They don't care about children. They only care about bringing me down. They will fail. I will, in the next couple of weeks, be announcing a new independently funded media venture of my own, and a live tour in the coming weeks, and new campus tour dates, part of my new Troll Academy tour. I started my career as a technology reporter who wrote about politics, but I have since mutated and grown into something quite different and much bigger. I'm now a performer with millions of fans in America and beyond. I'm grateful for the tens of thousands of messages that I have received. And I look forward to making you all laugh, cry, and think for many, many decades to come. My full focus is now going to be on entertaining and educating everyone, left, right, and otherwise. If you want to brand or stereotype me, good luck with that. Don't think for a moment that anything that has happened in the last 48 hours will ever stop me being as offensive, provocative, and outrageously funny as I choose on any subject I please. America has a colossal free speech problem. The land of the First Amendment has some of the most oppressive social restrictions on free expression anywhere in the Western world. I'm proud to be a warrior for free speech and creative expression, and I want everyone in America to have the right to do, be, say, read anything. I want people to be able to dress however they want. I want people to be able to play whatever video games they want. I want people to realize their potential and have the full limits of creative expression available to them. That isn't currently the case in America. America is a country I love. America is a country that has taken me in. Its people have taken me in, and I'm very grateful for that. I am proud to be a free speech warrior in America, and I will continue to do that. I'm not going anywhere. Thank you very much. I will take perhaps 5 questions.
Milo.
Yeah.
So, in an interview you did with Nightline with us at ABC, you said you never say anything you don't believe.
Yes.
So what you said in that podcast, do you believe that? And what exactly is this about? Is this an apology? Is this about you? Or is it about that you no longer have a book deal and you no longer are speaking at CPAC?
This is about me apologizing for saying things I did not mean. This is me apologizing to other victims of abuse for comments that may be perceived by them as insensitive or flippant, which was unintended. You know, you sort of freewheel and spitball in these, you know, boozy, long, late-night internet live streams. You know, some of them go on for 3-4 hours. And you play with ideas, and sometimes these things come out half-baked, or they're expressed in ways you didn't intend. For the most part, I do not believe that these videos show what reporting claims that they show. But for those statements I did make where I misspoke, I'm here today to apologize.
We spoke with some of the organizers of the Berkeley protests, and they say what's happening right now, what you just said, and what's happening with you in the mainstream media, and this is a victory for them. Because without those protests, without shutting you down, the mainstream media would have never looked at you with a microscope. What do you say to that?
Well, this isn't really about me crowing, but I don't think this has done any harm for my profile, and I think, you know, more people are going to read what I have to say on the subject of free speech as a result of this. It may not be from the same publisher, and it may not be from the same, under the same masthead, but I have an opportunity now through what has happened, and this has not been a pleasant 48 hours for me. I have an opportunity now through what has happened to reach an even larger audience, and I intend to do so.
Milo, do you stand by your comment of calling Joe Bernstein?
Could you be respectful of other people, please?
Did you speak to Steve Bannon about your resignation from Breitbart?
No.
And just as a follow-up, what's your innovation status? Are you on a work visa?
I'm on an O1B, Alien of Extraordinary Ability.
Do you stand by your comment of
yeah.
calling Joe Bernstein a fictitious?
I'm looking at the scene here. I'm not sure that we could have a news conference with researchers talking about curing cancer and we would have as much turnout here.
Yes.
What does this tell us about our culture? That there is so much interest about you,
Yes.
about this controversy,
Yes.
and about what's happened over the last month from Berkeley to this point.
Well, I think it says something very obvious and very clear, which is that America has a gigantic free speech problem. Both the left and the right are guilty of that. In the 90s, it was the religious right saying that video games could make you violent. Now it is feminists and social justice warriors saying video games can make you sexist. And all of the associated forms of school marmishness and nannying and pearl clutching, language policing, the safe space culture, trigger warnings culture, all of this stuff is designed to restrict the free expression of the rest of America. And it is perpetrated by elites on the people. It is perpetrated by well-funded, well-educated people in coastal cities on the rest of us, on perfectly innocent pursuits and perfectly innocent expressions and perfectly innocent language. My rapid rise in the last year, I think, is testament to the huge hunger from both sides. Because I got to tell you, most of the people at my talks are not your typical college Republicans. My rise and the interest in this story is testament to the fact that America is crying out for somebody who will say the unsayable, who will break taboos, and who fearlessly resists those who want to clamp down on free speech and free expression. That's what I think it says, and I think it's very clear.
Just a quick follow on
Okay.
that. Are you at all concerned that while you've been sort of straddling the line, walking up to the line, you've now crossed over the line into a place of irrelevancy?
No. If I thought that was the case, I wouldn't be making an appeal now.
This is why you would be making an appeal.
Well, no. If I thought I'd crossed the line over into irrelevancy, then I would be with my tail between my legs somewhere. I'm apologizing for a small cluster of remarks that I made, some of which I think are taken out of context. There was obviously some deceptive editing that happened there. One or two of those comments I did not mean. They did not reflect my beliefs. And I think, I've never apologized about anything else before. I don't anticipate doing it again. But this particular subject strikes pretty close to home for me. So it was very important for me to clarify my position on this particular subject, given my personal history with it.
Do you stand by your comments on calling Joe Biden?
Sorry, say again.
Thank you. NBC News.
Hi.
Do you think that there are homophobic undertones to the fact that this particular topic is the one that finally crossed the line, given that gay men have historically been equated with pedophilia, and given that you have done some rather controversial things in the past?
Well, statistically speaking, there's no evidence to suppose that pedophilia and homosexuality are related, though I think that the numbers show a slight preponderance. I think pedophiles are slightly more likely to be gay. That is to say, slightly more likely to be into boys if they're men than into girls, but not by very much. I know that CPAC has a long and complex history with gays. I know that one of the organizers of CPAC was fired for trying to welcome, log cabin Republicans into the tent. I know that there have been a lot of problems with CPAC and homosexuals. I think if you look at the crowds that follow me around, Louisiana State University, we filled a 1,200-seater in 48 hours. I came out in full drag, as a drag queen, to give a talk about fat shaming. And 1,200 Republicans gave me a standing ovation. This simply hasn't happened in the history of this country before. And I'm very proud to be introducing what I would consider to be normal gays to, Republican and conservative America. We don't all have to be like, the stereotype, the pink suit and ludicrousness of a lot of gays that you see on television. I think if there's a problem, it's the way that gays are represented on TV. I've probably done more for the image of gays in the flyover states than all the associated than all of the gay charities, gay activist groups, and gay publications for the last 30 years. I think they've seen me, and I get emails every day along these lines. They've seen me, and they've realized. I get emails from mothers sometimes, and they say, "My son is gay, and I was terrified that he was going to turn into Ross Matthews. But you've made me realize actually that gay people can be okay." I'm very proud of that and very happy of that for that. If there's any extent to which homophobia played into CPAC's decision, I certainly wasn't aware of it, and I know that many people within CPAC have been very supportive of me appearing there. I'm not a traditional representative for American conservatism. I've never painted myself that way. I'm a visitor to this country. All I can really do is express my opinion, having been here for a year and a half. But given the level of interest, the sheer number of people who seem to love me, and who want to buy my book and come to my shows and all that kind of thing, I think it was only logical that CPAC would seek to book somebody like that, somebody who is obviously the most interesting thing happening in American conservatism right now.
Milo,
Yeah.
Thank you.
In your statement, you said what you're going to do next, you're going to be working on a new independent media venture.
Yes.
You brought that up.
Yes.
Can you give some details on what that can be? Is that going to be something rival to Breitbart? What would that be?
No, I don't intend to go head-to-head with Breitbart in any respect whatsoever, but I will be doing a lot more of the same that I have been doing, just not under the Breitbart banner. We have received some preliminary funding for that. I expect to be raising more. I think it'll just be more of the same. College tours, probably commercial tours, more TV, more video, more everything. I'm going to focus now, on entertainment, on education, and less perhaps on journalism. I'd sort of outgrown my role, I think, as technology editor at Breitbart, which is fairly obvious. I'm going to be doubling down on education and entertainment, and see where it takes me the next year. I can do one or two more.
Milo.
Yeah.
Okay, so we at the Gateway Pundit discovered that the original attacks on you came from two sources. Democratic activists with deep ties to George Soros, in addition to former presidential candidate Evan McMullen and the CPAC. So these Never Trump websites and individuals continue to invest vast amounts of money and time in attacking Trump supporters and members of the current administration. My two questions would be, what do you think of these anti-Trump groups and their continued attacks? And my second one is, do you think that these groups have any future in the Republican Party? What would you say to them?
Publications and activist groups and political operatives who insist on preserving their own power. These are people who have sold out your country to line their own pockets. These people are dying, if not already dead. Their publications have no readers. They're, very obvious that this was a highly coordinated and very well-planned and well-funded attack on me. But I have to take responsibility for what I said. Nonetheless, everyone at home can see what's happening. And everyone at home can appreciate when, Donald Trump is voted into the White House, but the whole Republican Party absolutely hates him, that something has to change. There has to be a break at some point. This sort of populist nationalist revolution that is happening, the anti-political correctness, pro-free speech revolution that is happening all over the Western world is not going anywhere. For the last 30 years, speech codes have been the order of the day, and right-wing politicians have run terrified and screaming for allegations of racism and sexism, and basically given ground on almost every serious issue. Well, that's changing with the rise of bold electorates and bold politicians. Donald Trump's an example of that. I'm an example of a cultural figure related to that social change. And we are going to represent the next 30 years. This last 48 hours has been a horrible and humiliating and degrading experience for me. But I'm going to be around for 30 years. Many of the people who are organizing everything they possibly can to take me down will not be. I'll do one or two more. We've had you, so I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Milo, I'm going to toss you a bone. First of all, I'm going to let you know, although I test everything about NAMBLA, the FBI actually agrees with you. When it comes to criminal classification, victims who are 10 or 12 years old actually can grant consent. If you would, please pass this to the gentleman visiting from England.
Well, I'd just like to clarify there. I said in a segment of the video that was cut, which most of you will not have seen, that I felt that the age of consent was, I quote, about right, unquote. I have no desire or wish, I don't think it's desirable or justifiable to change the age of consent. I think the age of consent in my mom's native Germany at 14 is too young.
Okay, the one question I have is on behalf of the state of Texas. You do issue very provocative statements.
Yep.
This is one that you said that is very offensive and messes with Texas. You said gay marriage is not a civil rights struggle. Stop comparing gays and blacks. When gay men are slaves, it's because we beg to be.
Yes.
I'm going to tell you the 1964 Civil Rights Act was signed by the greatest president of the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson. He's a Texan. He signed it because Texas is next to Mexico, which is very close to your daddy's precious wall. He signed that because Mexicans were showing up to workplaces and white men were intimidating and physically abusing them. The Civil Rights Act is never, ever intended specifically for blacks only. Lyndon Baines Johnson included it for discriminatory purposes. Your
I think it was a funny joke, and I stand by it, and I don't take comparisons to Ann Coulter to be insulting. She sells a hell of a lot of books. Yeah. There's been interest, obviously, since Simon & Schuster decided at the first opportunity to jettison it. I'm sure they'll get a lot of plaudits in New York cocktail parties, but the people who actually want to read it, the people who support me and believe in what I'm saying, in their millions, will, I'm sure, seek out wherever it is published by the next person. We expect to be able to announce something about that in the next couple of weeks. The book will come out. The book will come out this year as planned. I don't think that's clear yet. I probably won't go to CPAC. I don't think it would be indecorous for me to go and cause a fuss. Sorry?
What were your conversations with Alex and Milo before you made this decision? Did you face any pressure from him?
Alex has been nothing but supportive. He's been one of the... I think Alex Marlowe is the editor-in-chief of Breitbart, in case some of you don't know. He is probably the most gifted editor of his generation. He has extraordinary abilities. He's taken Breitbart from an upstart insurgent website to the #3 news organization in the country. Anyone in here from the New York Times or CNN, you are the only people in the room who have more readers than Breitbart now. And that is mainly due to the great insight and gifts of Alex Marlowe. He's been nothing but supportive to me. And as for the specifics of announcements or whatever, I think I'll keep that confidential. Let's do...
For people who don't know you, what's your relationship with Steve Bannon? When was the last time you spoke to him?
Steve Bannon brought me into Breitbart. Steve Bannon is one of the most formidable and brilliant political operatives of his generation. I have nothing but admiration for the guy. Not an easy person to work for if you're a slacker. Not an easy person to work for if you don't show up to work or if you don't really give everything your all. Fortunately, I'm not one of those people. I haven't spoken to Steve for a very long time, since before he took the job at the White House.
You credit him as discovering, I think you said something to that.
Yeah, Steve Bannon, has populated Breitbart with, a disproportionately Jewish ethnic minority and gay senior editorial team. And we are, we were, I should say, far more diverse than any of the people criticizing Breitbart for alleged racism or God knows what it is today. Yeah, go ahead.
What would you say to other 13-year-olds who find themselves in your similar situation right now, who feel that they don't have an outlet to talk to and they are being preyed upon by maybe older men?
Yeah, some of the comments I've made about sort of sexual assault, sexual abuse have come across as callous because I think the message that I was trying to send was it doesn't have to ruin your life. It didn't ruin mine. It certainly didn't. Well, it certainly affected mine. It remains to be seen whether it's ruined it. But I would encourage people to not buy into the victimhood culture, not let it define the rest of your life, not let it color every decision you ever make and everything that ever happens to you. It was only really on reflection that I realized that most of my 20s, which was spent drinking and partying and, waking up in random places in Ibiza, at 4 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, were probably me running away from something. So I might not have perceived at the time that that was the root cause, but I'm pretty sure it was. And it took me until I was about 30 to straighten myself out. But I did, and I'm now doing very well. And I'm very grateful for all the people who have my back, which is, my inbox has been extraordinary. I think there's a big gulf between the public and the media in this country. Nobody really would be surprised or outraged by that statement. Most journalists simply have no understanding whatsoever of the country they're reporting on. I have a really good understanding of this country, and that's just from being here for a year as a foreigner. Maybe it takes a foreigner to sort of come with open eyes and without prejudice and without preconceptions. Most journalists simply don't understand the country they're reporting on. I do. I just want anybody in my position. I lost my virginity at 13, and the things that happened to me happened between 13 and 16. It's not the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you. And I know that some people will find that in itself an outrageous statement, but it simply isn't the worst thing that will ever happen to you. Going bankrupt is worse. All kinds of other things that may happen to you in your life could be worse. So don't allow it to define you, and don't allow it to shape your decision-making, because then they win. All right. I'm going to do maybe one or two. Yeah, go ahead.
Protesters outside. You can hear them outside.
I can,
what
yes.
What do you want to say to your protesters outside?
Well, it's a very simple thing. People who actually come to my shows, who read my columns, tend to end up quite liking me, even if they don't agree with me on everything. People who just read the headlines obviously have the views that these people outside have. And that is a part of the, part of the failing of the media in this country. They have gleefully reported things about me they know aren't true over the last 48 hours, with the result, that you now all know. And you guys are responsible for that, and fuck you for that, because you did a bad thing. I take responsibility for the words I used. I take responsibility for the things that I said. But I don't believe that any journalist or writing a story or any editor pressing the publish button believes that I sincerely advocate for or support pedophilia. It's an absurd and ridiculous allegation, but they gleefully printed it anyway. America knows better and knows different. I'll take one more question.
Milo?
Yeah, okay.
You're saying you're taking responsibility for your comments now, but as you said, many of those comments were made months ago, a year ago.
Yeah.
Why did it take you this long to make these kinds of statements?
Well, frankly, I didn't even remember that I'd made them. I didn't even recall them. I mean, these videos have been out there for over a year. I do hundreds of interviews a month. There are thousands of hours of me shooting shit on YouTube out there. And I don't remember individual provocative statements that I've made until they're brought to my attention. Nobody would. Having had them presented to me and having been asked about them, I realize now that there are two statements in particular that do not reflect my views, for which I apologize. The rest, I think people, I don't see why I can't make a joke about clerical sexual abuse, but a drag queen in a club 2 blocks away can. And I think that's a double standard, and it's got a lot to do with politics.
So just as a quick
Thank you.
You've never had any negative feedback about those controversial comments until now?
I have negative feedback about everything all the time. If I read that, I wouldn't get the chance to do anything else. My life is one long fielding of negative feedback, but certainly nothing serious about those, no. And that's how you know that this is a politically motivated witch hunt. And the other way you know is that people knew about this stuff a year ago and didn't print anything. They waited until the most damaging possible moment, and everybody knows that. And I think America will judge accordingly. Thank you very much for coming. Thanks a lot.